Good afternoon, everyone. We come to another session. This time we're looking at a very wonderful subject and presentation. So we'll be looking at the course and the subject of commerce. Commerce, which basically means a means of doing business. And so I want to stretch one point as we are beginning to say commerce is one of the most important subjects, not only academically but also practically in life. Even as we complete our grade 12, we'll discover to say even as we go to our higher educational services, the subject of commerce is very important and it applies to all sectors and all industries in this life. And so in this presentation, our main focus will be mainly based on the introductory part of commerce. Of course, when a student hears the word commerce for the first time, they might be wondering to say, what are we talking about? What are the main points and what is the purpose of learning this subject? And so our aim in this presentation is to make commerce so simple and for us to be able to understand it in a way that we'll be able to answer and respond. Even as we'll be studying, we'll be able to find that we're understanding all the concepts and all the requirements that our examiners will be examining us on in the examinations. And so basically commerce is simply talking about trade and aids of trade. What are we talking about when we hear about trade and aids of trade? In a summary or in simple terms, commerce is simply a way of doing business or a way of doing transactions. This is what enables us to pass on our goods from one point to another, but in a very formal and formal ways and means. So on my board here, I have defined a good definition that we're able to use when we'll be understanding and doing our presentations. And so what are we trying to say? Commerce is trade and aid to trade. And so it aims at the distribution of goods and services in order to satisfy human wants and needs. So at the core of everything, when we hear about the word commerce, we're talking about it satisfying the human needs. And human needs are in various forms and ways in this life. And so let's break it down. Trade is the buying and selling of services and goods with a view of making profit. There are two types of trade, so we've got local trade and international trade. And so below is just a table, a presentation of a summary of what commerce really talks about. And so I've got two arrows. The first one talks about trade, and the second part goes to talk about aids to trade. So this basically are just taking us back to the definition of trade and aids to trade. So the whole of the syllabus and the whole of the topic of commerce, you'll be basically looking at two things, trade and its aids to trade expanded in a much bigger form. So let's look at the first component, which is basically trade. So when it comes to trade, I'll look at local trade and international trade. What are we talking about when we talk about local trade? So local trade is simply business that is done within the locality of an environment. For example, we can talk about doing business locally in Zambia. We're not doing any exportations. We're not taking any goods and services outside of this country. That is the local trade. In short, trade amongst ourselves. So what kind of examples are we looking at when we talk about local trade? Let's give us a practical example. We've got, in the telecommunication industry, we've got companies like Airtel, we've got companies like MTN, we've got companies like Zamtel. And so these are companies that are offering service of communication to the local community. So let's also look at the part of international trade. International trade is simply trade between countries. In short, we're talking about a cross-border transaction, a cross-border type of business. Zambia is trading with Zimbabwe, Zambia is trading with Tanzania, Zambia is trading with the other surrounding countries and nations. And there's a body that simply regulates the international trade. Like in Southern Africa, we've got what we call the COMESA, Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa. So that body exists for the purpose of international trade. In short, it makes business easy to be done between nations, between people of different countries and nations. And so that is the essence and purpose of trade. So as you are doing business, what are we talking about? What makes business easy to be done are simply what we call aids to trade. And so those aids to trade are divided also into their various segments or components in business. So number one, we'll be looking at warehousing. Number 2, we'll be looking at advertising. Number 3, we'll be looking at banking, transport, insurance, and communication. So let's break this down in a much simplified form. So as a businessman who is involved in trade or commerce, you're going to discover that you'll be trading in goods that are physical in nature. And so as you be getting your goods from your suppliers, as you be getting your goods locally or internationally, you will need a place where to store them, to put them in a place so that they can be kept in stock or ready for sale. And so that is where now we come in with the issue of an aid to trade component of warehousing. So warehousing is simply a place where we stock the goods that we've gotten from our suppliers and from other people that are providing a service to us in terms of goods and services. Okay, so we've gotten those goods in stock. How do we deliver? How do we make our customers know to say those products are with us? Now the aid to trade component of advertising comes in. It is simply the issue of marketing. So people must know to say we've got products, we've got goods and services at the end of the day. And so the issue of advertising falls into place. So it is an aid to trade. It helps business run smoothly. Let's proceed. We'll look at the issue of banking. And so we've done our advertising and people have known about our products. At that point, people will be demanding our services. And so they'll be bringing in cash, money, and other items of exchange. And so that money that we get now from selling those products in commerce and in business, we need to do what? We need to bank them. Hence, an aspect of what now? Banking services. And to go a little bit deeper there, this is where the issue of types of accounts now are able to come in. So in short, as you are doing business in commerce or in trade, you need to have a secured place where you'll be storing the money that you'll be making. And so these are now the banking services that we're talking about as an aid to trade. It offers you security in terms of your money at the end of the day, and you are going to have easy access and easy transactions when you'll be doing with the banking part and the banking services. So in other sessions, we'll look at the banking part a little bit deeper. Let's proceed to the aspect of transportation. And so the goods and services that we got from our suppliers, we need to transport them into our various localities. For example, we might have our head office here in Lusaka, and we might have branches around the country and around other places. And so these goods and services must also be transported to the other places where we are operating from. Our head office can be in Lusaka, but we might have other branches in Copper Belt, Eastern Province, Southern Province, and Western Province. And so the aid to trade now of transport, this part also comes in. I'm going to proceed to another interesting part of insurance. Insurance is simply providing security against the goods and services that we've gotten from our suppliers. In case of any damage, in case there's any loss in terms of those services. And so we must provide the security against them. And that is what we call now in aids of trade insurance. And so there are various goods and services and types of insurances that you and I, at the end of the day, must come to know. Third-party policy, comprehensive insurance. So in other presentations and sessions, we'll look at the types of insurance in a much deeper way and format. And finally, among the aids of trade today, we'll look at communication. Communication is one of the most vital parts when we're talking about commerce and trade. In short, without communication, there can be no transactions. Without communication, there will be no exchange of goods and services among people that are involved in commerce and trade. Even internationally, we need the effective communication for us to thrive and do business together. Hence, the introduction of bodies that are able to facilitate trade among people and trade amongst countries. And so communication is vital for us. We shall discuss the different types of communications later in our sessions as we come to do other presentations in commerce. So in a summary and in a nutshell, when we hear the word commerce, it is simply doing business and exchange of goods between people and the organizations and to satisfy the needs that society has. Hope you have enjoyed our session. It was just basically based on the introduction in commerce. So we shall look at in details of this aids to trade in other presentations and in other sessions that we're going to have at some point. Thank you so much. Hope we've enjoyed our introduction and our lesson this afternoon. Thank you.